May 8, 1942. Early morning light struggles through the smoke and haze over the Coral Sea. You can almost hear the dull thrum of distant explosions, the metallic groan of steel tearing under fire. The USS Yorktown, pride of the U.S. Navy, lists slightly to port, her flight deck scarred by Japanese bombs and torpedoes. Sailors scramble across twisted metal, shouting over alarms, water sluicing through open hatches, the salty tang of the ocean thick in the air. Commander Elliot Buckmaster moves along the deck, eyes sharp. The carrier's engines cough and sputter. One boiler is dead, another damaged. Smoke coils upward from the hangar where a squadron of F-4F Wildcats sits battered, wings scorched. Every sailor knows the grim truth. The Yorktown is bleeding, and she's just days away from her next battle. Below decks, damage control teams work feverishly. You feel the tension in the tight corridors, sparks flying, hoses hissing, men grunting as they wedge shoring beams into fractured bulkheads. Keep her afloat. Someone yells, and it's more than an order, it's a prayer. In the Japanese fleet, a few thousand miles away, Admiral Chuichi Nagumo assumes she's out of the fight. He doesn't know what the Americans are about to attempt. The air smells of burnt cordite, salt, and fear. Lieutenant Commander John E. Jack Young surveys the shattered bridge. His hands are blackened with grease and soot. "We either fix her or she dies here," he mutters. Around him, the men nod, grimly accepting the impossible. And yet in the chaos there's a spark, a defiance that refuses to bow to fate. As the carrier's hull creaks ominously, a single thought pulses through every sailor's mind. How could they take this ship, damaged, broken, seemingly defeated, and make her fight again in just 3 days? Pearl Harbor, May 10, 1942. Dawn barely touches the horizon, casting a pale light over the dockyards. You can hear the pounding of hammers, the roar of torches cutting through steel, the constant clatter of machinery. The USS Yorktown sits in dry dock like a wounded beast, her deck scarred, her hull pierced, her engines silent. Yet around her, hundreds of sailors, engineers, and shipyard workers move with an almost desperate precision, like bees around a hive. Captain Elliot Buckmaster walks along the scaffolding, clipboard in hand, surveying the damage. Every bolt, every girder, every gun turret has to be inspected, repaired, or replaced. One error could doom the ship, not just to failure in combat but to sinking right here in the harbor. Below, mechanics strip down engines, while welders work tirelessly to mend fractured bulkheads. Time is their enemy. You can almost feel the tension in the air, thick as smoke. Navy electricians run frantically, rewiring the Yorktown's power systems. Gun crews rehearse in simulators, preparing their cannons for the moment they'll roar back to life. Ships like this aren't meant to be rebuilt in days, yet every man on that dockyard floor knows they have to make the impossible happen. In quiet corners, whispers of doubt circulate. Could it really be done? 3 days, that's all. But every sailor, every engineer, every wrench-turning hand carries a single unspoken vow. Yorktown will sail again, or they'll die trying. Outside the dry dock, the Japanese fleet, unaware, continues its maneuvers, confident that victory is inevitable. They have no idea the Americans are rewriting the rules of possibility. At noon, a massive steel girder crashes into place with a metallic roar. Somewhere in the distance, a torpedo bomber drifts overhead, a reminder that time is running faster than ever. And then, someone notices something impossible. A section of the flight deck, thought destroyed, is actually salvageable if they act quickly. May 11, 1942. The sun is barely climbing over the harbor, but the Yorktown's deck is alive with feverish motion. Sparks fly from welding torches like miniature lightning storms. The roar of drills, the hiss of steam, and the constant clang of metal fill every inch of space. You can almost feel the heat radiating from the steel, the tension vibrating through every plank and girder. Lieutenant Commander John E. Jack Young crouches over a damaged engine, sweat dripping into his eyes. "We have 72 hours, he mutters under his breath. 72 hours and she's back in the fight. Mechanics strip, rebuild, and replace massive turbines as if they were toys, each turn of the wrench a gamble with fate. Engineers run back and forth with blueprints, shouting corrections, recalculating angles, margins, tolerances. Above, the flight deck crews work on the Wildcats and Dauntless dive bombers. Wings are patched, guns calibrated, engines tested. Every sailor knows that even a single misstep could render the aircraft useless in the next battle. Yet, despite exhaustion, despite the impossible odds, there's an unspoken rhythm, a heartbeat, that binds the dockyard together. At one point, a massive section of the flight deck threatens to collapse under its own weight. Sweat-streaked welders dive in, shoring it up with makeshift supports. "We can't lose this section," someone cries. "Every plane we can launch counts." Outside, the harbor water shimmers, unaware of the silent battle being fought here. Meanwhile, intelligence reports filter in. The Japanese fleet is moving toward Midway. Time is bleeding away. If Yorktown doesn't sail, the American forces will face them without one of their most crucial carriers. And then, amidst the chaos, a voice cuts through the din, a report from the engine room. The turbines are operational. They might just pull this off. May 14, 1942. Just 3 days have passed since the Yorktown limped into dry dock. The harbor is alive with tension, sailors scurrying like ants, engines humming as they roar to life after their miraculous repairs. You can almost feel the anticipation, a charged electricity in the humid morning air, every hand and foot synchronized toward a single, audacious goal: make Yorktown fight again. Captain Buckmaster walks the deck, inspecting the repaired flight deck. The scars of battle are still visible, blast marks, twisted steel, but the ship stands proud, almost defiant. "All systems check," he asks. The engines growl, turbines spinning smoothly. Anti-aircraft guns swivel and load, their barrels gleaming under the sun. Pilots and deck crews run drills, the roar of planes taking off and landing filling the air. It's as if the Yorktown itself is drawing a deep breath, ready for vengeance. Elsewhere, word reaches the Japanese command. The carrier they had assumed destroyed is moving again. Chuichi Nagumo's staff can scarcely believe it. Recon planes confirm it. Yorktown is operational. The disbelief spreads through the fleet like wildfire. "Impossible," one officer whispers. "We saw her burn, we saw her crippled." Back on the deck, sailors brace as the anchor is lifted. And the ship begins to glide out of Pearl Harbor. You can almost hear the collective heartbeat of the crew, tense, anxious, but determined. Every sailor knows that in a matter of days, they will face the Japanese fleet at Midway. But for now, there is a quiet, almost sacred sense of triumph. Against all odds, the Yorktown lives again. And as the harbor recedes beneath the rising sun, one question hangs in the air. Will 3 days of impossible repairs be enough to turn the tide of the Pacific War? June 4, 1942. Dawn breaks over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, the horizon a blur of mist and smoke. The Japanese fleet cruises confidently toward Midway, unaware that one of their most dangerous opponents is already at sea. And then through the haze, a silhouette appears. The USS Yorktown, fully operational, engines roaring, flight deck alive with the hum of aircraft. Admiral Chuichi Nagumo squints through binoculars, his face paling. That can't be," he mutters. His officers exchange bewildered glances. They had accounted for every American carrier except one, and the Yorktown was supposed to be crippled, docked, a ghost of its former glory. Yet here she is, alive and bristling with firepower. On board the Yorktown, pilots ready their Wildcats and Dauntlesses, engines whining, wings flexing. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the mix of adrenaline and fear. Every sailor knows the next hours will determine the fate of the Pacific. The Japanese fleet, confident and arrogant, is about to discover that the Americans are capable of what they considered impossible. And when the first planes launch, slicing through the morning fog like predators, the Japanese officers realize the terrifying truth. The Yorktown is not only back in the fight, she is a phantom of vengeance. Every maneuver, every strike, every dive-bombing run echoes the sweat, fire, and sheer determination poured into those 3 impossible days at Pearl Harbor. Yet even as the Yorktown strikes, One thought lingers in every sailor's mind. Can sheer human will and ingenuity really change the course of a battle or even a war? By mid-morning, the battle over Midway is raging. The sea is a churn of smoke and fire, planes screaming overhead, anti-aircraft guns blazing. You can almost feel the heat from the explosions, taste the acrid smoke, hear the frantic shouts of men fighting for survival. Amid the chaos, the Yorktown moves like a living weapon, her repaired engines thrumming, her decks alive with activity, her planes striking with precision. Lieutenant Commander John E. Young coordinates the fighter squadrons, directing Wildcats to intercept Japanese bombers. "Cover the dive bombers. Don't let them near the carriers," he shouts, voice carrying above the roar. Pilots respond instantly, executing maneuvers they've drilled countless times. But this time, the stakes are higher than ever. Every successful interception is a testament to those 3 days of impossibility at Pearl Harbor. Japanese commanders, still reeling from the shock of seeing the Yorktown alive, struggle to adapt. Their initial confidence gives way to doubt, then fear. Torpedo bombers are sent in waves, yet the American fighters and anti-aircraft guns disrupt every approach. It's not just a battle, it's a revelation. The seemingly destroyed carrier has become a pivot, turning panic into victory, disbelief into awe. And just when it seems the Yorktown's miraculous return might be the edge the U.S. needs, a new threat emerges from the sky. Japanese dive bombers, more numerous than anticipated, streak toward the carrier with deadly intent. Every sailor braces. Could 3 days of frantic repair be enough to withstand the onslaught? Or is the Yorktown's second life about to meet a final, devastating test? The afternoon sun beats down on the Pacific as Japanese dive bombers descend in deadly arcs. You can almost hear the roar of engines mixing with the frantic alarms on Yorktown, the metallic clang of guns firing, the screams of men racing to save their ship. Every sailor knows that survival is uncertain, that the Yorktown, rebuilt in 3 impossible days, may be tested beyond anything they've endured. Captain Buckmaster moves along the flight deck, shouting orders over the chaos. "Fire at will. Keep those bombers off the ship." Anti-aircraft guns belch fire, tracer rounds slicing the sky, trying to carve a path through the relentless attackers. The pilots, already exhausted from constant sorties, push their Wildcats and dauntless dive bombers to the limit. A torpedo strikes below the waterline. The deck shudders violently and a plume of water erupts near the hangar. For a moment, time seems to freeze. Smoke and fire curl upward as sailors scramble to contain flooding and flames. Yet the Yorktown holds, her hull resisting the blow, her engines roaring as if spurred by sheer willpower. The repairs, every welded seam, every replaced turbine, every reinforced bulkhead, it all matters now. In the Japanese command, disbelief has turned to panic. They had underestimated the Americans' capacity for resilience, their ability to defy logic and expectation. Yet even as the Yorktown endures, there is an unspoken tension on deck. The ship has survived, but for how long? And in the haze of battle, a single question lingers in every mind aboard the carrier. Can human determination truly bend fate? Or is even the most miraculous repair only a temporary reprieve? Evening falls over Midway, the sky streaked with smoke and fire. You can almost taste the salt and sweat mingling in the air, hear the distant echoes of explosions fatting, the crackle of radios reporting the unbelievable. The USS Yorktown, battered but unbowed, still floats, a testament to human ingenuity and sheer determination. Her planes, guided by exhausted but resolute pilots, have struck key Japanese carriers, crippling the fleet and turning the tide of the battle. Captain Buckmaster stands on the bridge, eyes scanning the horizon. Every man aboard knows the price paid. Dozens of sailors lost, planes destroyed, hearts tested to the brink. Yet the carrier endures. Lieutenant Commander Young, leaning against the railing, allows himself a brief moment of awe. "We did it," he whispers, almost disbelieving. "Not just a repair job, not just a battle. It is the improbable triumph of a crew who refused to surrender to fate." The Japanese fleet retreats, Stunned by the sudden reversal, Admiral Nagumo can scarcely comprehend what has occurred. The carrier he assumed destroyed has not only returned but delivered blows that will echo across the Pacific. It's a victory born not just of steel and firepower, but of relentless human resolve. Every rivet welded, every engine repaired, every crewman who refused to yield has shaped history. And as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the battered Pacific, the Yorktown sails on, a living symbol that even in war, the impossible can become reality. Yet even in this triumph, a shadow lingers. The battle is won, but the war is far from over. How many more impossible feats will be demanded before the Pacific is free? Weeks after the battle, the USS Yorktown becomes more than a ship. She becomes legend. You can almost hear the whispers in naval yards and mess halls, even across distant theaters of war. A carrier rebuilt in 3 days, returned to battle, and changed the course of history. Her story spreads, a testament to ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination against impossible odds. Historians would later call her Midway's miracle. Sailors who served aboard speak of the roar of her engines, the scent of the freshly repaired decks, the adrenaline of launching planes just hours after the impossible repairs were completed. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz himself praised the crew. The Yorktown's return demonstrates what resolve and dedication can achieve in the face of overwhelming adversity. Yet beyond accolades, the true legacy is in the human story. The welders, the mechanics, the pilots, the gunners, they weren't famous names in history books, but they were the heartbeat of this miracle. Each bolt they tightened, each engine they coaxed back to life, every hand that refused to yield contributed to a moment that changed the Pacific War. The Japanese, meanwhile, would never forget the shock of seeing the Yorktown alive, an omen that the Americans could achieve the impossible. And as you imagine standing on her deck, watching the sun rise over a quiet Pacific, it's clear. The Yorktown story is not just about steel and engines. It's about courage, audacity, and the belief that even in the darkest hour, humans can defy expectations, rewrite fate, and turn despair into triumph.